Okay, continue on with the CSA studies video 3. We will start with email harvesting. Attackers often attempt a process called email harvesting, and as a security analyst, you should too. Typically, email harvesting bots, automated processes are used for this. Common ways in which email addresses are gathered include the following: from posts with email addresses, from mailing lists, from web pages and web forms, from internet relay chat and chat rooms, by accessing the same computer used by valid users, through social engineering, by buying lists from other spammers, by accessing the emails and address books in another user's computers. So why do attackers gather email addresses? One of the biggest reasons is to use the addresses as source addresses for spamming. That's bad enough, but certain social engineering attacks involve sending emails to targeted employees in an organization. Launched as a type of phishing attack called a spear phishing attack, these emails are designed to lure a user or group of users to connect to a site that appears to be a well-known insecurity site for the purpose of harvesting access credentials. So again, guys, when you are clicking on a link that you might think came from somebody that you know, you should pay close attention to any emails that you receive that maybe you did not ask for that, but you got it. So it's better, you're better off to check with that person if they sent you that email or whatever link they sent you. Next topic: social media profiling. A great deal of information can be exchanged or made available to the world through social media. In some cases, employees may unwittingly or intentionally reveal sensitive information that can be used to further an attack. As part of a security policy, it should be made clear to users what can and cannot be revealed in social media. Training should also be provided to the organization on the dangers of social media, as well as malware. As part of assessing the environment, security analysts should employ the same social media profiling activities as an attacker. Next topic: social engineering. As part of assessing the security environment, analysts should attempt the most common social engineering attacks to determine the level of security awareness possessed by the users. These attacks involve gaining the trust of a user in some way, convincing him or her to reveal sensitive information such as passwords or to commit other actions that reduce the security of the network. In this way, an attacker enlists a user as an unwitting assistant in attacking the network. When social engineering issues are found, training should be provided to users to prevent these attacks in the future. DNS harvesting. DNS records for the devices on the network are extremely valuable to an attacker because they identify each device by name and IP address. The IP addresses may also imply how the devices are grouped, because it is possible to determine the network ID of the network in which each device resides and, therefore, which devices are grouped into common subnets. There are different DNS record types. So DNS harvesting involves acquiring the DNS records of a company to use as a part of mapping the network. The easiest way to do this, if possible, is through unauthorized zone transfers. But one of the ways a malicious individual may be able to get a few records is through the use of the tool called tracert in Windows or traceroute in Unix. These tools trace the path of a packet from its source to the destination. When tracert lists the hops or routers through which the packet has traversed, the last several devices are typically inside the organization's network. If tracert lists the names of those devices, which it attempts to do, they are available to the hacker. So, in other words, I think we will cover DNS record types in a much later video, because this is something that you need to make sure that a network admin or cybersecurity analyst should make sure that DNS transfers cannot be done. Another option for gathering some information about an organization's DNS namespace is to use Whois. Whois is a protocol used to query databases that contain information about the owners of internet resources, such as domain names, IP addresses, or IP address blocks, and autonomous systems, AS, numbers, used to identify private border gateway protocol, or BGP, networks on the internet. An attacker can use this treasure trove of information to enhance attacks on network. While originally a command line interface application, Whois now also exists in web-based tools. Although law enforcement organizations in the United States claim that Whois is an important tool for investigating violations of spamming and phishing, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN, has called for scrapping the system and replacing it with one that keeps information secret from most Internet users and discloses information only for permissible reasons. Some organizations use third-party privacy services to remove their information from the Whois database. Although your organization can do this, it may leave the public wondering what you have to hide. It may make some people and companies likely to do business with you. So when considering the options related to Whois, you should balance the pros and the cons. You can check out this tool on the web. Just go do a Google search for Whois, and you should be able to just do a Whois lookup for any website. Not that I am condoning anything like that for anybody to do it, but I mean, it's legal. You can do it. Another form of DNS harvesting involves convincing the organization's DNS server to perform a zone transfer with the attacker. While there was a time when this was very simple, it is a bit more difficult now if the organization has chosen to specify the DNS servers with which zone transfer may be performed. You should ensure that you have taken the steps and then attempt to perform a DNS zone transfer from an unauthorized DNS server. Phishing. Phishing is a social engineering attack that involves sending a mass email that to the recipient appears to come from a trusted party, such as his or her bank. It includes a link that supports to connect to the bank site, when in reality it is fake and is under the attacker's control. That appears to be identical to the bank's site in every way. When the user enters his or her credentials, the attacker collects them and can then use them to impersonate the user at the real site. As a part of assessing your environment, you should send out these type of emails to assess the willingness of your users to respond. A high number of successes indicates that users need training to prevent successful phishing attacks. The variables. Your approach to environmental reconnaissance is affected to some degree by a number of variables that can differentiate one network or scenario from another. The following sections take a look at some of these variables and how they may affect how you carry out environmental reconnaissance. Wireless versus wired. While wired environments offer plenty of opportunity to attackers, wireless networks offer even more. You have some control over where your packet goes when you use bounded media or cables. However, when wireless signals are sent out, they are available to anyone within ranges. And when attackers capture this information, you have no way of detecting it. For that reason, you must assume that all your wireless packets are being read and encrypt any sensitive information. Moreover, a number of other dangers exist that are unique to wireless LANs or WLANs, wireless local area networks. If an attacker is able to set up an evil twin, an access point with the same SSID as the legitimate AP or access point on a different channel, he can convince and sometimes force users to associate with his access point or AP, and then issue them IP addresses that place them in his network. At this point, he is positioned to perform a peer-to-peer attack. Environmental reconnaissance testing in a WLAN or wireless LAN, or whatever you want to call it, should include looking for these rogue APs. You may discover in the process that rogue APs have been placed by users who have no idea that they're creating a security issue. Having an unsecure AP connected to your wire network is akin to having an Ethernet jack out of the parking lot with a sign saying unauthenticated access to our internal network here. The testing in a WLAN should include identifying any sensitive information that is being transmitted in clear text as well. Finally, a site survey should be conducted to assess proper distance and identify weaknesses and rogue access points. The following are some of the measures you can take to mitigate wireless attacks. Disable the broadcast of the SSID. Create a MAC address filter that allows only known devices. Use authentication processes that provide confidentiality integrity, such as WPA and WPA2. WPA2, I wouldn't advise it because you can break it. You can really break into a WPA router. Trust me, I've done it. Deploy 802.1x port-based security. Set the radio transmission strength to the lowest level that still services the required area. VM escape. This type of attack occurs or happens when a guest OS escapes from its VM encapsulation. VM meaning virtual machine, to interact directly with the hypervisor. This can only allow access to all VMs and the host machine as well. So VM escape is a type of attack, okay, that happens within a virtual environment. Unsecure VM migration. This type of attack occurs when a VM is migrated to a new host and security policies and configuration are not updated to reflect the change. Host and guest vulnerabilities. Host and guest interactions can magnify system vulnerabilities. The operating system on both the host and the guest systems can suffer the same issues as those on all physical devices. For that reason, both guest and host operating systems should always have the latest security patches and should have antivirus software installed and up to date. All of the principles of hardening the operating system should also be followed, including disabling unneeded services and disabling unneeded accounts. VM sprawl. More VMs create more failure points, and sprawl can cause problems even if no malice is involved. Sprawl occurs when the number of VMs grows over time to an unmanageable number. When this happens, the ability of the administrator to keep up with them is slowly diminished. So just know exactly how many VM machines you have and know exactly how many you can manage or administer. Hypervisor attack. This type of attack involves taking control of the hypervisor to gain access to the VMs and their data. While these attacks are rare due to the difficulty of directly accessing hypervisors, administrators should plan for them. Don't forget that. DOS, denial of service. The goal of this type of attack is to derail the target's online services by overwhelming it with too many requests. Inadequate VM isolation. This type of attack enables VMs to communicate improperly and can be used to gain access to multiple guests and possibly the host. Environmental reconnaissance testing should include both attempts to launch these attacks and investigation of current virtualization practices for any shortcomings that could lead to attacks. Moreover, security professionals should take advantage of VM traffic monitoring tools that come with the hypervisor, which provide better visibility into this traffic than other monitoring tools due to VM traffic being controlled by internal software switches. Pay particular attention to the proper segmentation of VMs from one another and the host as well as from virtual environments to the physical network. Internal versus external. You should approach the protection of internal resources differently than you approach protection of those that are either in an extranet or DMZ. One of the reasons to create these multiple logical segments of a network is to allow for layer 3 access control at the firewall or router to filter traffic allowed to go from one segment to another. Improper application of these access lists, ACLs, can lead to unanticipated and undesirable access from one segment to another. Additional dangers exist beyond ACL misconfigurations. 1. The firewall has more openings when extranet or DMZ web servers have access to internal databases. 2. Excessive extranet and DMZ connections provide potential entry points for malicious code. 3. Extranet and DMZ connections often afford an avenue of access for unauthorized users to exploit sensitive or proprietary information. 4. If one network is compromised, an entry point for compromise exists for all other network connected to it. 5. Inadequate access controls and a lack of understanding of extranet security policies and requirements can expose the interconnected networks. Begin attempting to leverage these possible weaknesses during environmental reconnaissance testing. You should test all ACLs and verify the following. Extranets and DMZs are securely partitioned from the company intranet. Secure connectivity is provided using a virtual private network, VPN. External users are uniquely identified using strong authentication. The principle of least privilege is used for implementing authorization. A routable path does not exist between partner networks. Real-time monitoring, auditing, and alerting are in use. On-premise versus the cloud. Accompanying the movement to virtualization is a movement toward the placement of resources in a cloud environment. While the cloud allows users to access the resources from anywhere they can get internet access, it presents a security landscape that differs from the security landscape of your own premises resources. For one thing, a public cloud solution relies on the security practice of the provider. These are the biggest risks you face when placing resources in a public cloud. Number 1, multi-tenancy can lead to the following. Allowing another tenant or attacker to see others' data or to assume the identity of other clients. 3. Residual data from an old tenant exposed in storage space assigned to new tenants. 4. The use of virtualization in cloud environments leads to the same issues covered earlier in this chapter in the section virtual and physical. Remember that section that we went through. Mechanisms for authentication and authorization may be improper or inadequate. Shared ownership of data with the customer can limit the legal liability of the provider. The provider may use data improperly, such as data mining. So remember that. Data jurisdiction is an issue. Where does the data actually reside? And what laws affect it based on its location? As you can see, in most cases, the customer depends on the provider to prevent these issues. Any agreement the organization enters into with the provider should address each of these concerns clearly. Environmental reconnaissance testing should involve testing all these improper access issues. Any issues that are identified should be addressed with the vendor. And with that, we'll stop here and we will move on to the next video, which starts with the tools. Thank you.